Okay, guys, so apparently Facebook's down, Instagram's down. I'm not down. I'm going to do my video and upload it. So, today on Sherry's Journey, I want to talk about autism. I had started several months back updating with different tips about girls with autism, which also means women with autism, because women and girls present differently than boys. And my personal belief is because we're social creatures. And so having autism is a social disorder. So we present differently because we are more interested in succeeding socially than I guess boys are. But we all have our strong points. We all have our weak points, right? So I had started several months ago updating with different tips. Just for informational purposes, for those who are interested, if you have girls on the autism spectrum, things that we generally do. I was diagnosed about a year ago with autism. I had suspected it for several months before I was able to get tested and diagnosed. The only reason I was able to get in and get tested and diagnosed so quickly is because I'm raising 3 boys, now 2 boys on the spectrum. The oldest one has moved out. So I was very familiar with the doctors at Vanderbilt, and they were kind enough to test me because they probably saw something in me that, needed to be tested. Generally, society focuses on children because children who are on the autism spectrum and are struggling in school and things like that need help. But there are people who have autism that get by and go undiagnosed for years, even though there's subtle signs there that people miss because it can be dismissed as mental health issues. It can be dismissed as depression, a bad childhood, which I didn't. My childhood was not that bad, but there's different reasons why. And the reason that I want to make this video is because it's because I never finish them, and I'm known for that, finishing things and I don't start. So today I'm going to go over number 6 and number 7. So number 6, many autistic girls imitate the social environment where they grow up. They learn to imitate social behaviors and scripting and doing things like that. They often mimic social environment settings so well that it serves to disguise their social struggles. So what that means is that girls, especially girls who are on the spectrum, when they're growing up and when they're young, they can learn very easily how to pass in society. They go home, they have their meltdowns, but when they're out and in social settings, they learn how to disguise their struggles. And that is so true. It has a name. It's called masking. And social scripting and masking is something that girls particularly are very good at. And like I said, I think it's because we have that social aspect. And girls tend to be more social, where boys tend to be more hands-on and physical and things like that. So they don't have as many social opportunities to learn how to mask. That doesn't mean they don't do it, because I'm sure they do. When you're growing up and you know that what you're thinking or you're feeling or how you're acting is different, and you learn that by comments from people around you, you learn that through watching others and knowing that, hey, that's not how I would react, but everyone else seems to react this way. So you learn very early that, this type of behavior is socially inappropriate. So I need to find a way to fit in socially so I don't stand out. And because that's more important to girls, I think, and not more important, but girls are social creatures more so than boys. So we learn that early, and we learn to mask. And people don't realize that, and that's why I love doing these videos, because I feel like you're seeing me. But if you're part of my family, or if you're part of my homeschool group of friends, or you're part of my LGBT group of friends, or if you're part of my different groups of people, see a different Sherry, because I learn how to behave based on how that group behaves. And I pick up those traits very quickly and very easily. And so I know what to say and what not to say in front of my family, and I know how to act in front of my friends. And, that's why drinking for me is a big, huge issue, because obviously that inhibits your behavior and your social decisions. So I tend to get different when I'm drinking. So there's just so many different things that play into it. But number 6 is, most autistic girls learn to imitate their social settings and their social environment very early on, and they learn how to get by. They learn how to mask. And so it seems like girls are diagnosed less. Seems like autism is a boy problem, but I think it's because girls are like me and they're able to mask it better. And so they fly under the radar a lot of times. And also with autism, number 7 is about comorbidities. And I hate that word because it just sounds morbid, but usually when you have autism, you have other things that go along with that. And a lot of times they go hand in hand. Anything that makes you neurodiverse may have other issues going on. So if you have a child with autism, these are some things that you might want to look for. Comorbidities can be anything from sensory processing disorder, which is similar to autism, but it is different. So you might have a child that has both of those. Visual processing disorder, which is similar to dyslexia, but dyslexia is where you actually interpretation of the words and the letters is different, whereas with visual processing disorder, how you process them in the brain is different. So one is brain, one is visual. So there's differences there. ADHD, ADD, very common with people on the spectrum. The higher functioning someone is, the more able you will be to decipher all these different things. Epilepsy, luckily nobody in our family who's having autism issues has epilepsy. But most people know that that's it's a seizure disorder. So dyslexia, again, similar to visual processing disorder. It's where how you interpret letters and words can be backwards or just out of place, and it's really hard for kids on the spectrum to learn their letters and their words because they're not seeing them. But they can adapt, because I think generally they see them the same way every time, but it's confusing for them. Dyscalculia, I can't say it very well, but that is the process of not being able to do math or figure out numbers. Some people on the spectrum really struggle with numbers, and it's probably, could be dyscalculia. Dysgraphia, which is writing, having struggles with writing, copying letters. Sometimes I think that's PAX, but he is teaching himself slowly. He has always struggled to write. All people with autism struggle to write. And I heard from an autistic man one time that, and this seems to be true as well, that people with autism tend to, when they're writing, they tend to push down really hard. And if you're trying to write, sometimes just practice. And if you push down really hard on the pencil while you're writing, your hand gets tired and sore. So people with autism sometimes struggle with not just how to hold a pen or pencil, but the pressure that it takes to write. And so they get tired. Most people on the spectrum don't like to write. Luckily, our world is going in a direction where we can type and we can teach our kids to type, and that will make it much easier. But dysgraphia is where they struggle to write. And all of my boys, even the 18-year-old, their writing is very hard to interpret sometimes. And they hate writing, so we don't do a lot of that around here. I'm going to touch on dyspraxia because that's something that Gage struggles with. He has autism, he has ADHD, and he has dyspraxia, which is a muscle condition or a coordination condition where their muscles aren't quite as tight as they could be. For instance, when he was little, he was very floppy, and for a little while, we thought he might have Down syndrome because he was just so floppy, and kids with Down syndrome tend to be weaker in the muscles, So we knew something was going on with Gage. We didn't know what it was, but for a while we thought it was that. But the dyspraxia, if we're at the zoo or we're going somewhere, he tires out at the same rate I do, and I'm 52, so he tires out very easily. It's very hard for him to walk long distances. He's never been able to really get a hold of riding a bike and things like that because the coordination for him is just not there. So that is one of his comorbidities, is dyspraxia. A lot of people with autism have mental health issues, but I think a lot of times some of these other things are diagnosed as mental health issues. But if you have a person who struggles really hard to communicate, and we all do when we're on the spectrum, that can cause mental health issues. That can cause frustration, depression, confusion. I know when I finally realized that I was on the spectrum, so many of those things lifted because then I knew what was wrong. And doctors forever have said, oh, you have depression. Oh, you have bipolar. And I'm like, no, that doesn't fit. So once you figure out what the problem is or what the difference is, it makes it so much more easy to deal with. And, it can make a lot of those mental health problems go away. Just knowing what the problem is and knowing that other people understand what the problem is. Tourette's is another one that you see sometimes go hand in hand with autism. Gavin has Tourette's. He's my oldest. He's 18 years old. He has Tourette's, very mild Tourette's, but it started presenting around 2.5 with head tics, and the vocal tics started around 10 or 11 or 12. You have to have both kinds of tics to be diagnosed with autism, and he did, although they're mild. He took some medication through puberty and through his teenage years, which really helped with those things. And also another one that I'm learning kind of goes hand in hand with autism is aphantasia, which is what I have, which is mental blindness, where you cannot close your eyes and picture a beach. You can't close your eyes and picture, restoring light coming into your body. Just doesn't work. So if you hear my boys fighting, I'm so sorry. Sometimes they just have fights. I try to let them work it out. But mental blindness is a big one for me. Then I realized that all the other senses are also blind in my brain. For instance, I can't close my eyes and smell Grandma's cornbread baking. I can't do that. When I hear a song or a song is stuck in my head, it's my own voice with no music. All the senses, you should be able to close your eyes and create those things in your mind. And if you can't, then that's a disorder. And I didn't know that till about 1.5 years or 2 years ago. Figured that out before I figured out the autism. But, I've seen a lot of people with autism talk about not being able to visualize. So I think, they may be related. But anyway, so that's tip number 6. And tip number 7, if you're dealing with autism, especially girls, or you're raising a girl with autism, there's so many things in this amazing little graphic that I found, and I'm going to continue to share these tips with you. I think there's 23 or 24 of them. I did 1 through 5 way back there, so if you're on Sherry's journey, you can go back and look for those. But this was number 6 and number 7. I appreciate every single one of you for following my journey, and I'm down another pound today. I'm happy about that. So anyway, if you got any questions, let me know. Reach out. I will help if I can. If I can't, I'll help you find the answers. All right. Bye. Peace out.